Greetings and welcome to another edition of the Red Pill Diaries. I'm your host, Rashid, and let's just get into this show now. This is called Live Politics, War, and Economics. More dominoes, Western dominoes fall. I think that's the title of the show. I wanted to get into something real quick. I really wanted to get into something real quick. I was looking at something that took place that was a national security threat to the Russian Federation. Now, listen, we're going to be talking about Russia, China. Maybe we'll get a chance to talk about Africa, Latin America. We're definitely going to try to squeeze that in. We're going to talk about the U.S. and Europe and NATO, and we're going to in Asia. We're going to try to squeeze all that in. Okay, so bear with us as we try to get you this truth out and try to disseminate what is really going on. Now, there was a bomb explosion that rocked a bridge in Russia yesterday. It didn't make a lot of headlines in the West, but this has all the trademarks of a MI6 operation, even though Ukrainians were captured during this. Russia says Ukrainians. I believe Russia captured a few Ukrainians, but I also believe they captured a few Western intelligence agents that Russia demand that this was an open act of war against Russian civilian infrastructure, and it happened in one of the territories that is now a part of the Russian Federation. Now, it did not level the bridge, but it did have an impact on the bridge. This has all the hallmarks of the operation that the MI6 carried out on the bridge over Crimea not too long ago. This has all the hallmarks of that other operation that the MI6 and other NATO intelligence agencies had when they tried to move in and destabilize Russia and the new territories. I'm telling you, a lot of things is going on. I also want to say to you that Bakhmut, I think that's how you pronounce it, one of the most strategic cities that is being fought over in Ukraine, is looking more and more like it's about to fall to the Russian Federation and its allies, with the Wagner Group giving it a big push backed by allied forces of the Russian armed forces and the Donbass militias. If Ukraine loses this city, this strategic city, it will put them in a very, very, very tenuous and precarious situation in the Donbass region, because this is where the operation, one of their main centers of operation and planning is at, to try to maintain a presence in the newly declared Donbass region. And this would put pressure on Ugledar and all of these other small little areas that are still under Ukrainian control. This would mean that Russia would, in fact, be able to mount multiple offensives against the remaining held cities, but that are in the Donbass that are under Ukrainian and Western control. This is major. Also, while that is going on, we see a coup go on in Peru. This coup in Peru, and no pun intended, I'm not trying to rhyme. This coup in Peru, some people are saying, was initiated by the United States. Now, give me a second. I want to pull up something real quick. Give me 1 second, okay? All right. Yeah. Here we are right here. Now, this is what was going on. And you always find America's hand in these things, okay? Let's see. I'm looking for this article on Peru. This is on the spot. So they deposed the duly elected, democratically elected president of Peru. Now, you know, this has a lot to do with strategic interests of the empire, with the surrounding nations, and to be able to have a say in what is going on in Latin America. And also, America has her eyes on all of these untapped lithium and uranium and gold and silver mines that are across Latin America. Okay, this is exactly what took place in Bolivia. And you can look at all of these operations that are taking place by the U.S. empire. She has no regard for life, especially when it's life that is not European life. When it's a life that is not European life, she puts less value unless she can exploit that for her benefit. When you hear America talking about Muslim lives, or when you hear, well, I would not just say America, I would say America, Britain, in the Western world. When you hear them talking about the loss of Muslim lives, or the loss of Black lives, or brown lives, or red lives, or yellow lives, and even poor white lives, it is for exploitation. And they have a plan to exploit that to benefit on the other end. You understand? America does not care. How in the world, on one hand, can you scream about the exploitation of from some other government about minorities when you do that here in your country, when Britain does that in her country, when the UK, I mean, when the EU does it in the bloc of nations? The hypocrisy of the West again. You understand? So I'm looking for something, an article. They may have removed the article. I saw it the other day and I read part of it before they removed it. And let's see if I can. Well, anyway, the president of Peru, his name is Pedro Castillo. He was removed after the United States asked him to reconsider his policies. Huh? Coincidence? And he refused to change the policy that he wanted to enact for Peru and for Peru's allies. The United States, for them, had nothing to do with it. Okay. And immediately, within 24 hours of his rejection of America's so-called offer to reconsider his policies, he was impeached, deposed, and replaced. Do you think that's a coincidence? Also, I want you to look at this, because again, on this show we talk about insanity of the leaders and talk about the irrational, unsound judgment of politicians, especially in the West. Now, with America, I want you to think of this: with America under so much strain, militarily, economically, and politically, and with her allies not trusting her and her enemies wanting her removed from power globally, it would behoove her not to initiate coups in nations that could one day come back and bite her in the behind. You cannot stay king or queen of the global order, alienating every person on earth. America thinks she can. She thinks she can just dismiss the laws of other worlds. She has what we call extra U.S. judicial reach. She goes and she arrests citizens of other countries, and she charges them according to the laws that she makes, even though these people are not in America or are not from America and don't plan to come to America. She puts pressure on other governments to go and arrest citizens of other nations and hold them captive until she gets there, and then she transports them to America so that she can put them under U.S. jurisdiction. This is alienating the population of the planet Earth. This is alienating Latin America, Central America. This is alienating the Caribbeans. This is alienating Africa, West Asia, and even alienating the islands of the Pacific and Europe itself. And there are a lot of people in America that are fed up with American intransigence and American arrogance. And we see that the leaders disregard the cries and the calls from the people. Now, there's something. This has all the potential of an explosion on the global scene for war because she's in everybody's business, trying to dictate what everybody should do, even as she says that everybody's entitled to sovereignty and the freedom to do as they please in their countries. And at home, she does the same thing to the people. She dictates to them and removes what she claims to be their freedoms under false pretenses. So now we have an atmosphere of global explosion around the world. And we have an atmosphere of national explosion within her own borders. This is a recipe for the total implosion and collapse of the American empire and the American Republic. There is no doubt about that. So, as I was saying to you, I have some clips I want to play, and I have some things to share with you. And I want to go to the economic. After all, the show is titled Politics, War, and Economics. Western Dominoes Continue to Fall. So we got to talk on all levels, because if we don't talk on these levels, we don't get an understanding of why the empire continues to push so recklessly and continues to try to break up alliances and bomb nations and destabilize governments and overthrow leaders. Without the economics, without the politics, you wouldn't understand the military component. So I just want to go to something. This is the Economic Collapse blog, okay? And it is very important that you get an understanding of the dire situation that now faces America, okay? In this article, and I'll probably read part of it, and then I'll probably read part of another one, and then we're going to go to something. So for those of you who are listening, I know that you might get disconnected. I know that you might, the sound might go in and out, and I know I might get cut off for a second, but be patient and stay there, and just listen. Give me your ear for an hour or so. This article from the Economic Collapse blog is titled, Hundreds of Thousands of U.S. Homeowners Now Underwater on Their Mortgages as the Housing Crash Accelerates. Now, on this show, I told you by trade, I'm a real estate agent. Been, I think, since 2023, I believe. I mean, 2003, I believe. But check this out. I have been warning people about the exorbitant prices of houses and how this is unsustainable, especially when compared to the incomes of people and the true value of those homes. I knew that a bubble was being blown up again. I knew that the United States has this balloon and just continuing to blow and blow, and it is reaching the maximum of its stretching point. And when this thing pops, a lot of people will be underwater, wealth will be destroyed, because a lot of America's wealth of families. Oh, I see you in the booth. I'll bring you in a second. I see you in the booth. We have Rashid just came in the booth. So I'll bring him in a second. But as I was saying, a lot of America's and Americans' wealth is tied up and stored in housing, right? So people get second mortgages, people take loans out against their what is projected to be the value of the house and all of this stuff. Now, this does not just bode bad for the American populace. This bodes bad for the mortgage companies and lenders and the banks. So now you have a triple whammy when the housing market just spirals out of control. Michael Snyder writes this, and I'm not going to read the whole article, but I just want to put you in the mind frame of what's going on. Listen, the empire is collapsing, okay? She's trying her best to maintain her stability at home and abroad. She's trying her best to protect power and confidence, even as things go south. Well, here is another black swan that is signaling the decline and fall of the American empire. It says, here we go again. When the housing market crashed in 2008 and 2009, large numbers of U.S. homeowners ended up on more on their mortgages than their homes were worth. I've been telling you that, all right? It says, When the Federal Reserve started to aggressively hike interest rates earlier this year, I warned that it would happen again, and now that day has officially arrived. During the third quarter alone, U.S. homeowners lost an all-time record $1.3 trillion in equity as home values plummeted. And a new analysis conducted by Black Knight has found that approximately 450,000 of those homeowners are now underwater on their mortgages. See, this is a bad sign. This is a bad sign. It says, as the housing market continues to implode, the same words that I used when I was telling you, show after show. As the housing market continues to implode, marking a record drop in pending home sales last month amid canceled deals and price cuts, there are around 450,000 home buyers who owe more than their house is worth. Now, stop right there. Now, if you have an investment and you have everything on this investment, what do you think that you would do? You would walk away if that has been nothing but pain to the pockets. What would you do with that? You would walk away. Now, if you walk away from that home, right, you still have to have a place to stay. But the thing about it is now the mortgage companies and the banks have to deal with this. So now we have the people are unable to live it, afford their homes. Some of them will start walking away from it. We have an explosion of inventory that cannot be sold because of the market and because of the banks foreclosures or repossession of homes, a lost value of equity of home, a value, and a destruction of a whole class of people in their wealth standing. What do you think this is a recipe of? I'm asking you this. Let's go a little further. There are around 450,000 home buyers who owe more than their house is worth as of the end of the third quarter, according to a new analysis from Black Knight. Of those, around 60% or 270,000 bought their homes in the first 9 months of 2022. Wow. Look, not even a year has passed. This is what I'm telling you. Not even a year has passed. And 60% of them bought their home this year and are underwater on their mortgages. It goes further and says, in total, around 8% of mortgages taken out in 2022 are now marginally underwater, with another 20% having a low equity position. So wealth is being wiped out. You know, when you bought that home for $350,000 or $400,000, you go, oh yeah, I have equity in this home. This is for my kids, my family. And then a rude awakening take place when you look and have that reappraised in that $350,000, $450,000 home that you are still responsible for paying is now worth a fraction of the $350,000 or $450,000. So now you're at a deficit. The home is now reduced to $200,000, but you're still on the hook for paying that $350,000 to $400,000. Man, I'm telling you, this does not bode well for the American people. This means, listen, they don't like to say it in these terms, but I'm going to tell it to you in these terms. This is absolutely wealth destruction. That's what it is. It's like playing the stock market. You know, you get in on the stock, it rises, and you, oh man, I'm getting this and I'm getting this. And then before you know it, you've invested $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 on this stock. And you say, yeah, all of the pundits say this, this, and this. And then before you know it, boom, you have lost $10,000, $20,000, $30,000. It's time to walk away. But this is a symptom of the sickness. This is what I'm trying to get at. This is a symptom of the sickness of America. This is a symptom of the sickness of capitalism. And this does not bode well for the American public. You have record high credit card debt for the people. You have record high defaulting on homes and the market, what I was just reading about the market crashing and housing. You have record defaults on used and new car loans, right? You have banks closing at an unheard of rate or shutting down branches. You have stores consolidating and closing down this, and this. All while the American stock market is skyrocketing, right? What it is, as Rashid like to play, let's say 3-card money, or having that P, having you think that the P is under one of these 3 cups when the people, the power that be has the P in their hand or in their back pocket. You're searching for some relief. They've taken your money and the P, and you're standing up there looking like a buster, like a mark. This is what's going on. And when this stuff explodes, all of these things, all of these key indicators point towards something, along with the civil strife and the anger with the citizens against government, along with the cultural divide, the growing racial divide, the growing economic divide. This is a recipe, again, for the implosion of America and civil insurrection and war. I'm going to bring Rashid in just a second. Matter of fact, I'll bring him in and let him get a word. I hope that they don't start messing with his mic, because every time Rashid starts to talk, they bug mic. So I'm going to bring him in, and I'm going to say greetings to how's it going?
Peace. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you well. What say you on this matter of economic insolvency and economic malfeasance on the part of the powers that be?
When you was talking, I was thinking about, see, I'm in Southern California, and $300,000 to $400,000 will get you something with a rats are at down in the deep blue. They didn't got this thing so pushed out of whack that $300,000 won't buy you anything. As I said before, I bought my house 20 years ago for $200 and something thousand. Now it's going for almost $1 million. It shows you how they didn't jacked up the prices of stuff. And yes, I better yet, let me put it this way: the American people they can't see that the money really ain't worth nothing.
Right.
Money that you can get a tangible access when you're trading something. But if somebody just printing up money, it ain't worth anything.
That's right.
If any or commodities or something backing it, it's just like having monopoly money. You know, you can print up as much monopoly money as you want. Matter of fact, in today's system, they just go on a computer and punch on the computer and say, okay, you want $1 trillion? Yeah. You go and punch it on there, hit there and say, okay, you got $1 trillion. That's all it is. It's worth nothing. And the rest of the world and wised up to his, as we say, his con game, his 3-card Molly scheme. The rest of the world and wised up. And now they're ready to get off that merry-go-round. What are they setting up for? If you don't have commodities or you don't have gold or something of assets, then we don't get money. And it's the reason why the empire. And brother Rashid always say he once had the peso, right? Everybody looked down on the peso. Is what, $4 or $5 million of peso. Well, when this thing collapsed, the peso will be the strong currency, and the American dollar will be looking up at it saying, "Man, they sure strong over there in Mexico." America done printed up
yeah.
so much money that they can never claim or get their monetary stuff into get it right the way it once was. It's just out of whack. So like $300,000-$400,000.
Yeah.
Out here they got people paying $5,000 for rent. $5,000 to $3,000. Poor people that don't have anything.
Did they freeze you?
3,000. Yeah, it's just I can pay my gas, my lights. Yeah, it's been freezing.
Well, I'm working on.
And it's been a little cold out here, and it ain't like it is. So you're working on using another stream system?
Yeah. But go ahead, finish your thought. You know, there's a delay in what we say about. I don't know why they do this now. There's a delay in what we say about 3 to 5 seconds. So I don't know why they do that now, but they do it. Go ahead.
But like I said, it's the system, which is money and it's so bad that it has to collapse. And what the people don't understand, that what they're living now is going to soon disappear, and hard times will hit America.
Yeah. Now, I want to say something. I'm pulling up something real quick while Rashid is talking, and let's see real quick. I want to go to something because this has everything to do with the geopolitical situation and the economic situation and the tensions that you see between the global powers and stuff. Okay. Give me a sec. Let's see if that'll come up. Yeah, that'll come up right here. Okay, so now here we go, and you see how this is connected. Okay, we see at home the economic situation becoming more and more dire. It is by the day, and you don't have to take my word for it. All you have to do is go to the store and look at the packaging. You'll see that you're paying more for less, and then they try to make you believe that you're getting better quality, when in reality you're getting less, and you're getting inferior quality of goods. And if the store even has them at all, because now if you go shopping, you have to go to 2-3 different stores to get some of the stuff that you used to get at one store. So that lets you know the situation with the shipping and the situation with the stocking. There's a big divide there. The shelves of the stores are not being filled like they once were. So that tells us that something is going on behind the scenes. Something big and major is going on behind the scenes. I remember when they were talking about everything was good and what was going on. Good brother Rashid, he sent me a picture because he was out at the port, and he's out at the port, and he sent me a picture. And as far as the eye can see, there were ships out there that had not come, that had not been unloaded. As far as the eye can see. This is to show you that something is breaking down behind the scene that they are not telling you, you know. But I want to get to something because this has everything to do. And if you see smoke coming across the screen a little bit, this is my incense. I like to put me sage and knock champa sometimes for a good energy vibe. So you got to ignore that. But I want to get to something. Here, there's an article titled "China Ignoring West Russian Oil Price Cap." Now, this is very important. Most of you don't pay attention to this. The United States, Great Britain, and Europe are trying to regulate the oil of Russia and how much Russia can sell its oil for. Listen to me good. Again, we go back to something I tell you. Now, just imagine. I want you to see how ludicrous this idea is and how unacceptable this idea would be for anybody else. And America thinks that a global superpower, or 2 global superpowers, will accept this. Okay? I'm going to give you something that'll hit home so that you can see the reality of the situation. Okay. Say, for instance, you have cable. Down here we have Cox cable. Okay. And I think Xfinity and something else I forgot, but Cox Cable dominates. Okay, and then you have what used to be Gulf Power, but I think it's called Florida Power and Lights now. Okay, I think that's what it's called. I'm not sure. I got to read my bill. Um, but and then you have and these are these are almost monopoly. I know the power company is a monopoly, and you're not supposed to have monopolies, but the power company is a monopoly. Now just imagine you going into your power company or your telephone company or your cable or internet provider and then telling them, listen, I know that I get my internet from you or my cable from you, or I get my power from you, or I get the water from you, or I get something else from you. But this is what I'm going to pay you. This is what I'm willing to pay you for your goods. And if you don't sell it to me at this price, then I'm going to talk to other people. And then even if they don't want to join in, I'll sanction them too. And we're going to sanction you, and we won't allow you to sell your power, your water, your internet, your cable. Think about how the people in the power and cable and water places would be looking at you. Now, these are things that you need. They're vital to your interests. And they have this so-called commodity that you need. And you're trying how to price their commodities that you don't possess, but it's vital to your livelihood. Well, this is the same thing that the US, the UK, and the EU are trying to do with Russia. But it's not just an attack and an assault on Russia. See, they use that as trying to keep Russia in check for its belligerence against Ukraine. That's the talk. But what it is, they're trying to control. Now, these are the people who need it. Now, I just want you to look at it. These are the people who need the product. These are the people who need the commodity. They're trying to control the product or the commodity and subjugate the producers of the product in the commodity. This is not just an attack on Russia. This is an attack on OPEC, the oil producing nations, in the what they call a cartel that they have. This is also a move to try to prevent the gas version of OPEC from coming into being. And this is also an attack on the on individual producers of the commodity, so that the West gain their grip on hegemony through the petrodollar status, and at the same time shoot an arrow right through the heart of China, which is the largest consumer of the petrol and the gas. So if I can price your commodity in my currency, and I can tell you that this is the price, and everybody got to accept this in my currency, guess what? Then everybody is beholden to me, because all I have to do is render the currency that you have that is mine as null and void, sanction. That means I'm stealing your commodities, and I'm keeping everybody else from being able to buy your commodities unless they go through what I say. This is the mind of the US, the UK, and the EU. Europe has little to no resources, and they're trying to demand. Now, Russia accounts for 44% of all the gas of the European Union and about 20% of all the oil. And Europe, which has little to no oil and gas, is trying to strong arm Russia into discounting their product that is vital for European industry and the European economy. Absolutely insane. Go ahead.
Also, if they can pull this off on Russia, they can pull it off on all the other oil producing countries, right? If I can say a 20 barrel and go.
Rashid, say what you had to say again. They're messing with the microphone. Listen to me. They're messing with your microphone. Say what you have to say, but say it slow. Say it slow so that they don't bother your microphone.
Also, what they're doing is they're trying to do this to the other countries. If they can successfully pull this off on Russia, then they can do it to all the other oil producing countries. Well, naturally, they got Iran sanctioned. They can do it to Arabia. They can do it to all of the Gulf countries. They can do it to Iraq. Everybody over there, if they can dictate what their price of oil should be, then it's better than having them actually being in control of those countries, because nobody can sell oil other than what you want it to. It is a brilliant move, but it's out of season. Nobody is going. It's like you said. You go to the supermarket and get you a dozen of eggs and some groceries and stuff, and the bill comes up to be whatever he say, $65, right? And you go to tell a checker, well, I don't think it should be that. I think I should be able to pay a $10 spot and walk out with these groceries. They're not going to go for it. They're not going to go for it. It just shows you the level of madness that then creeped into the leadership of America to actually do. Like Russia said, well, if you're going to do that, well, then we just ain't going to sell you no oil. And oil is what makes a society, oil and petroleum is what makes a society function. So if you're going to take, Russia got a certain amount of the oil, has some amount of the oil's price that's produced around the world. And if you take Russia out of that, then you're a base of oil. You really cutting your own throat. And then Russia then hooked up with the OPEC and the rest of them, and they made an agreement and showed them if they get away with doing this to me, they're going to do it to you. And so the rest of them say, well, we ain't going to sell you no more. He is put himself in a horrible 22 that he will not be able to get out of.
And and this is crazy now. And Europe follows America lead on this, and they now America has a lot of resources, even though some of it is real expensive to bring from under the ground up into production. But Europe has little to no resources. While America has demanded this oil price cap and this gas price cap, and Europe has followed suit, and they have passed laws which is deindustrializing Europe and its main economy, which is Germany. There's a report out stating that the United States has doubled or even quadrupled her purchases of Russian oil and gave an exemption to the U.S. companies that are purchasing the oil, while Europe is under the gun for purchasing the oil and the gas. And check this out. So under this price cap, Russia, as Rashid said, Russia refuses to sell oil and gas at a loss or at a price cap by the West. So, and the European Union just passed another round of sanctions and has initiated a price cap or tried to initiate a price cap on Russian oil and gas. But here's the kicker. They are being deindustrialized by these sanctions. People are losing their jobs. Companies are folding. Banks are folding. Investment is fleeing Europe, right? Check it. Check this out. Here it is. So while all of that is happening, the bills that the European Parliament is passing or pushing will make Europe have to go to China and India to buy Russian oil. Now, Russia has had multiple pipelines to Europe, and Europe was getting discounted gas and oil from Russia to keep the European economy booming, right? So now Europe has to buy oil. So if oil is if Russia sells the oil to China at $80 a barrel and India $80 a barrel, well, India and China marks up the oil to $100 a barrel, $120 a barrel, and then sells it to the EU. And the EU is already collapsing economically because of the debt and the deficit spending, just like the United States. This is tantamount to getting a gun putting all bullets in all chambers and saying that you're going to play Russian roulette and put it up to your head and pulling the trigger. Now, we know that all chambers are loaded, so when you pull the trigger, guess what happens? You blow your brains out. That's what's going on.
I was thinking that what's getting done to what's happening to them is what they've been doing to all the other little people, marking up the prices. Now it's happening to the big man, right?
Yes.
He get in the position to get used by his system.
And
that's
and in this article,
how the world China is has turned, hasn't it?
Hey, and it does it so quickly that most people don't even recognize it. But listen, it says China is ignoring the Western Russian oil price cap. Now, again, let's go back to something. China is the largest purchaser of oil and gas. Russia has opened up a new gas pipeline just the other day. They already have several. They opened up a new one, and now they're also and let me go to something else as I'm talking on this. Recently, in this past week, there were demonstrations and riots in Mongolia. Mongolia is a huge nation that is sandwiched in between parts of China and Russia. And the people were demanding that a deal be struck down that was signed with China. Didn't it sound like the same thing that took place in Kyrgyzstan and Kazakhstan and all of these other stands once they and Pakistan, once they signed these deals with China, the United States, because they have these organizations there supposedly helping aid
NGOs, as they
and
call
all of these are CIA for to find people who are dissatisfied with certain things, and then they grow them and grow their organization. So at the drop of a dime, the United States or Great Britain snaps their finger, and then protest spreads just like in Iran. But check this out. Here's the thing, and it goes to this oil and this gas thing. The reason there was a lot of protests in Mongolia, and the reason the United States, she was trying not to show it, but she had to, because China had not only just signed a deal, but right after signing a deal with Mongolia for China to mine some natural resources there and to pump money into the Mongolian economy and produce jobs. There was a meeting between the Mongolian president, the Chinese president, and the Russian president, and they had just signed a deal for a major gas and oil pipeline to transit Russia, Mongolia, and into China. And this right here was unacceptable by the European Union, the UK, and the US, because they know that Russia is redirecting and its oil and its trade eastward. And without Russian gas and without Russian oil, the European economy comes almost to a halt. And America and the UK and the EU knows they're playing geopolitical games. But in this article, and I'm going to get to some clips here. In this article, it says trading crude above the $60 limit set by Western countries could mean Moscow is covering freight and insurance expenses. Russia's ESPO crude from the Far East is being sold above Western imposed $60 sanctions. Now, what's important, I'm going to finish reading a little bit of that. But I go back to what Rashid said. Just imagine going into Walmart and, you get you these TVs or whatever. I know that's what a lot of people get, those big TVs, okay? The TV is $700. And you go in there and you pick it up, put it in your cart, you take it to the cash register, and they scan it and they say, this is $750. You say, oh, you get your wallet out and you drop them $100 and this is what I'm going to pay for it, and you walk out the door. How far do you think you will get with that television? This is what America is trying to do to Russia and China and the rest of the world. But they don't see it like that because their minds have been altered, and and they are inebriated on the power and the influence and the wealth that they used to have. They have not come to terms and come to grips with the reality and the situation of today. And in this new reality does not have a unipolar world run by America with her junior partner, the UK, and her minor partner, the EU. Things are changing quickly. Go ahead and say something, then I'll finish reading.
Remember what he did when the Iraqi prime minister made a oil deal with China, and Trump say to the prime minister, if you don't cut off that oil trade deal with China, all of a sudden you're gonna find a lot of trouble happening in your country. Mm-hmm. You'll find people shooting at policemen on the top of a high-rise building. And it'll be the same thing that he did in Ukraine to overthrow the president. That lets you know who is the one that's stirring up all of the trouble around. It is the same guy who always has a hit in hand. He throw a rock, and then everybody says, "Who threw that rock?" And he got his hands in his pocket. Wasn't me.
Yeah, and blames everybody else. Yeah, and so let's go a little bit more into this. Says Russia's PO crude from Far East is being sold above the Western imposed $60 per barrel price cap in Asia, Bloomberg reported on Friday, concluding that Moscow might be using its own tankers and insurance to bypass sanctions. See, the reason this is important is because for the last 100 years, the UK has dominated. I'm talking about England and all these, they call themselves Britain or the UK or England or whatever, but it's the same. They have dominated the insurance game globally when it comes to insuring ships and tankers. And so when America sanctioned the oil, Britain sanctioned the insurance companies. That if you do X, Y, and Z, we're going to strip you of this. But Russia and China have insurance companies too. And now they're taking up the slack. And this is unacceptable to the West. Now let's go a little further. It says the export price for ESPO grade for January deliveries was estimated at $67.11 by independent price information provided August Media on Thursday, and a number of China's independent refiners that have already booked oil cargoes for that month. The price cap on Russian seaborne oil exports of $60 per barrel was introduced by the EU, the G7 nations, and Australia on December 5th. Now, what does that tell you? The EU and the G7 are the same people. Do you know that America has a seat in the European Parliament? They're the same people. The United States of America has a seat in the European Parliament. So when you say G7, which is the nation, this is what they say, the global seven, which is France, Britain, the same culprits that stir up the trouble around the world, all of those guys. They're the same people with America.
The garden, right? The garden.
Yeah.
The garden.
Yeah, the
garden, right? That's what you're saying. The garden. The garden is the one that's doing this. And the garden works among themselves, and everybody else is in the jungle. And so the garden is out for the purpose of enriching the garden and the hell with the rest of the planet.
This is to the world. But listen, now I did that for a reason. Because if China does not participate, and they've already said this, the European Union and the US have already said that if they needed to try to strong arm India and China, and if these two don't go along with it, because they are two of the largest consumers of this oil and gas from Russia, if they don't go along with it, the oil cap implodes. So you have India saying that they're going to buy the oil regardless, and you have China buying the oil regardless. So what does that mean by you just saying that you passed the law? You've already said that without these two as the linchpins, that the law is null and void. So all you're doing is putting more pressure, unwanted pressure by the citizens of your nations on your nation and your economy. I mean, it is absolutely mind-boggling that the people, the average person, cannot see or cannot discern what is going on the global scale and how it blows back and affects you domestically. You know, because as Rashid said, oil is the engine to the economies around the world. Gas is the engine to the fuel to the engines of the economies around the world. If the oil and gas balloons, guess what? Production costs balloon. That means you're going to have to cut back on something. So that means you're going to go into a deficit on something. And yet, these people still believe that the people in Washington, in London, and Brussels have their best interests at heart because they've been brainwashed into the system, and they actually love their system. You hear them, they might say, well, America's wrong, but you don't see them making moves. Well, you see some people, but you don't see the majority of the people of America or the majority of the people in the Western world making moves to affect change. You don't see that. They go hook, line, and sinker, and they submit to the empire. And that's what they're hoping China and Russia and Iran and Venezuela will do. Now, it is something, since I said Venezuela, let's go back to something. Isn't it something that they tried to assassinate Maduro, the duly elected president? They tried to delegitimize his presidency and try to install their person who was schooled in the U.S. and financed in the U.S. They tried to on a day when they were having a public speaking with the Venezuelan president. They tried to assassinate him with a drone strike in Venezuela. They sanctioned him. They stole
Great Britain and the United States
stole all the gold of Venezuela. They would not. They tried to break Venezuela's economy and sanction the oil companies and sanction all companies that were searching for oil, because believe it or not, according to a lot of people think that it's Saudi Arabia that has the largest oil reserves in the world, but proven oil reserves is Venezuela. They have the largest proven oil reserves in the world. Now check this out. After America sanctions Russia and the EU sanctions Russia, America all of a sudden tucks tail and say, hey, if you allow us to do it, if you allow us to let Exxon come back in here and do a deal with you, then we'll remove some of the sanctions and we'll give you some of the billions, the tens of the billions of dollars that we held in our banks that we owe you. Because whether you know it or not, all of those
stole.
Yeah. So those sitcos, those Tom Thumbs that you go to, that all comes from Venezuela. And America is very dependent on that because it's easily refined. And America's refining capacity is geared toward oil like that in Venezuela. And now they're trying to strike up a deal with the president that they tried to depose, unseat, and assassinate because of policies that they're enacting in the East. And Venezuela is now an observer to the BRICS nations, the BRICS Bank, and the global South. And America thinks that she can pry Venezuela away from China and Russia. Do you see the madness in the policies of America, Great Britain? Go ahead.
Remember, they done already sanctioned Iranian oil. Now they didn't sanction oil. They didn't sanction Venezuela. They keep going down. Pretty soon ain't gonna be nobody to sell them any oil.
Right. So now look. Now all of this builds up to, we're talking about China, Venezuela, Russia, all of this stuff. See, this has a direct effect on food prices at home. This has a direct effect on heating prices at home. This has a direct effect on what we call shipping and distribution, which means that they affect every area of your life. The policies that they're enacting against these nations are affecting every area of your life. Yet they try to minimize it and try to keep you ignorant to their policies and what their policies are bringing oh, inflation is just a small amount. We'll keep it under control. We'll do this. They don't tell you that the inflation is a hidden tax because it eats. And the more that they pressure these commodity producing nations, the more it eats away at the value of the dollar, which means that you have to take more dollars to purchase a smaller amount of goods. Do you understand? Are you understanding what is taking place here? Okay, let's go to something. So there was a trip in the recent days, by President Xi Jinping of China. And he went to the Middle East and he struck up, I think, $25 billion worth of deals. It could have been more. $25 billion worth of deals with Arabia. And for investment in alternative energy like solar power, because China is the solar power capital of the world. They produce mostly all of the solar panels, solar power kits, everything. And China has said that, listen, we need to do away with the dollar in our trade. Since we are the largest buyers of your product, we would like to remove the middleman, which is America. And we would like for you to do more when you sell us your product. We would like to buy it in our currency or in BRICS currency, the new BRICS currency or whatever. So the leadership of Arabia was very receptive to that, because whether you know this or not, they have already been selling a certain amount of oil to China yuan or renminbi. So if you hear me say renminbi, it's the same thing as the Chinese yuan. China has two names for its currency, just like we say the dollar and the greenback or whatever. China has the yuan. So in this meeting, and I'm going to read some of it, some was reported about it right here. It says, President Xi Jinping has reportedly said his country will work to pay for fuel in yuan. Beijing will work to make energy purchases in yuan instead of the US dollar, signaling another step towards shifting further away from the greenback. You see how they use the dollar and the greenback? This is what I'm telling you. It says, China's President Xi Jinping has told Gulf Arab leaders, as cited by Reuters. Now check this out. He didn't just tell of Arabia, he told the Gulf Arab leaders that, listen, we're planning on doing a lot of investment with you. And we have a win-win situation where we're not hypocritical. We don't demand that you do this over here and then do this over there. We don't demand that we don't get in your internal affairs or anything. What we're saying is a win-win. You have the commodities that we want. I know you're tired of America dictating to you this and holding your assets as ransom. So what we'll do is allow you to trade your currency, your commodities in yuan. And so we have gold, we have silver, and we are the factory of the world. So this is as good as gold to you. And we will invest in high technology sectors and everything else. We'll build up infrastructure. We'll give you high-speed trains, all of this stuff. And we'll let you buy our new big Boeing-like things that some say rival Boeing and are better than Boeing airplanes. We'll give you all of this stuff with no strings attached. All we want to do is purchase our commodities and our currency. And it says that the Gulf Arab states were receptive to that. Now, what do you think that means? I mean, you think America is going to just willingly allow for that to take place? So we see a buildup of frustration and tension, and now you're seeing. Go ahead.
It's like,
say your thoughts.
It's like somebody, you the king in a throne, right? And another throne right next to you. Then you look and say, well, a new king is coming in town. And that means war.
Yeah, that means war. And it goes, and it further says,
America
says,
once again, you cannot expand this writing.
Finish your thought.
You can't expect a man that's riding on a horse to get off, else walk. I mean, ride, and he walk. He's not gonna go for that. And this is what's taking place.
And it goes on. The article goes on and says this: China's leader highlighted the necessity of the move while speaking at a Chinese Arab summit that was hosted by Saudi Arabia earlier this week. Xi had held separate talks with the heads of the Persian Gulf states at the summit that reportedly brought together 30 leaders from across the region. The world's biggest crude importer, China, in November ramped up purchases of oil by 12% year on year, marking the 10th month high despite the severe pandemic-related restrictions. This means that regardless to the sanctions, regardless to the pandemic, regardless to what was taking place, China was pumping in money to North Africa and the Middle East. This means that they were showing that they were going to be reliable, regardless of what takes place, the shifting of politics or the shifting of economics. So this got the attention of those 30 leaders from around that area. I call it the MENA region, MENA. I've been saying it for over a decade, the MENA region, which is the Middle East, North African region. That is at this moment in time, that is the most important region to look at. And on one show, I'll tell you why. Even though we look at Latin America and we look at Europe and we're looking at Asia, those things will really come into play shortly. But the MENA region, the North African, Middle Eastern region, is the most crucial area to look at because there will be a regional war there. There will be a regional war. But listen, he goes further and says this. Chinese state refiners stepped up purchases of U.S. crude oil while maintaining high imports of Russian oil prior to December 5th European embargo and imposition of an oil price cap. Now, here we go. Why did I say that? It's because now you're hearing in the news about China stepping up its belligerence, right? And the dictator Xi. Now, the United States is sanctioning China. Matter of fact, let me see if I can find it.
Dentist.
Yes. Well, here it is right here. The United States is sanctioning China over foolishness. Man, I'm telling you. Notice every time somebody tries to break free of dollar hegemony, they become dictators, tyrants, brutal leaders, commit genocide. They're a threat to their own people. They're a threat to the world. This is the line of talking that the MSM and the U.S. and the Western world have you to believe. They don't tell you straight out is that these nations are trying to shun the dollar, which means shunning American power, because the dollar is the life's blood to not only the American economy, but the dollar is the life's blood to the Western world order. And these nations are moving to cut off that. And if they cut the dollar off, the military bases around the globe has to shut down. America's escapades around the world have to stop. America's destabilization programs will be in dire need of funding, right? This, in the mind of a lunatic, is unacceptable, right? But in the mind of rational people, this is just the natural course of things, all right? So I want to show you something. We're talking on these lines. Like I said, we want to connect the dots so that you can understand what is going on, all right? So here we are. U.S. sanctions China right here. I'm trying to see what date it was. And look right here. It says China is ignoring U.S. and West oil price cap, just like the other article I read. And it's I'm trying to find the exact article. I have one right here, but I want to find the exact article where the U.S. Well, I'm not going to look for it. I'm just going to read part of this.
While you looking, why would China
say that again?
Why would China go along with this? Why would China go along with this scheme that America? It hurts China's best interest. Same thing with all India. All of it needs oil. So why would you go along with the master, the great white father of Europe and America, when it's all they're gonna do is hurt you and your citizens? They would be fools to go along with that stuff.
Yeah. Now, check this out. The United States just sanctioned China. Again, I have to do this sometimes because I'm saying to myself, these people are absolute berserkers. Look up the term berserker, and you'll understand what I'm talking about. These people in power are absolute berserkers. They are insane. They have an insatiable appetite for power, for war, for profit, and they will choose that over lives and security at any day. And if you look at most people that come into government power, these are people who were nerds, or most of them, who were bullied, or who felt left out. And so as they get, their psyche is messed up. You understand? And if you look at these people, these are the first ones who are willing to take a nation to war. Don't have no children fighting in the wars, right? But
they call them chicken hawks.
Yeah, patriotic. Look at the neocons from under George Bush. Half of them ran from being drafted in the Vietnam War. The other ones got into college so they wouldn't have to go to war. Yes.
Even Dick Cheney's women deferments said he had something. He was too busy to go to war. But now, he want to send you left and right all over the place. He's sending Americans all over the place. But when it was his time to do it, he was hiding in the closet, up under the bed.
And they had, listen, war was not beneficial for them. But now that these people have ascended to power, and the war does not directly affect their lives, only in the way of profit, because the same company, Northrop Grumman, Boeing, General Electric, Westinghouse, all of these companies make tens of billions of dollars of war material.
Halliburton,
all of these. Don't forget, and Johnson & Johnson.
Halliburton was Dick. It was nothing.
Yes. So.
And then after the war, again, it made hundreds of billions of dollars.
Yeah. Yep.
I said,
and look at.
That's how it became a Fortune 500 country of war.
To tell the people that these government positions are revolving doors from these people that come out of these same companies that we mentioned, just like the war secretary or the defense secretary, who was a general in the military, but also is on the board of one of the main defense companies, and then it was just a revolving door where he comes in and becomes the war secretary. You see, and all of the other ones do the same thing. Condoleezza Rice and all of these people had positions on the boards of all of these companies that are the greatest beneficiaries of war and hegemony. So, I want to get to something, okay? And I see the chat. I'm going to go into the chat in just a second when we play this clip, and I'll highlight some of the stuff that you're saying, and then I'll talk back to you in the chat. Let me read this right here. It says, Beijing urged Washington to drop the penalties and stop acting like a world policeman. China has condemned a new round of U.S. sanctions targeting officials for alleged rights abuses in the Tibet region, saying that the illegal penalties are merely an excuse to meddle in Beijing's internal affairs. Now, stop right there. America is sanctioning China. Again, let's go back to this. China produces between, some reports say up to 80%, but the main report that does, it says between 90 and 95%, because yes, China export 80%, but about 10 to 15% of other people exports, like Malaysia, Taiwan, and all that stuff, they get it from China, and then they just assemble it and send it to the U.S. So China accounts for 90 to 90% of all goods on stores now, and they're the largest trade partner. They're your largest financer, right? and largest investor, and you sanction them. I want you to see the madness in the policy here, okay? If I relied on Rashid for the livelihood of my family, and he paid my mortgage, he gave me money to spend for food for me, my wife, and my children. He paid the car notes and the insurance. Wouldn't you call me an idiot, a fool, an insane person if I go to Rashid's house and curse him out and set his yard on fire, kick down his door, and threaten to rape his family? Well, that's exactly what America and the West is doing. They're doing that. But if you look at it on a person-to-person term, you would deem that person psychotic, crazy, or insane, right? Well, we got to do that the same thing with the American and the Western governments, okay? But I wanted to get to something. They sanctioning the Chinese over Tibet. Whenever they get mad, they use the Uruguay. I think the Uruguayans, I can't pronounce them. Some made-up group that the United States say China is mishandling, or they use Tibet, right? And so the United States used a red herring to sanction China about Tibet and so human rights abuses and freedom abuses, okay? Now, this is coming from a nation that holds, it is a 5% of the population of the planet Earth and holds 25% of the prison population. That's 1/4 of the prison population around the world, with over I want you to think of this, over 200 countries in the world. And America accounts for 25% of the prison population, and she's talking about human rights abuses. When every day somebody is raped and beaten and killed in prison. What about the human rights abuse of the urban and lower class white community? When they have to go before a judge, and the judge has dinner with the prosecutor and the public defender because the accused does not have the money and the resources to get him a lawyer. What about that? Is that not a human right abuse? Are those not against the integrity of justice for people? Okay, since she's sanctioned and she wants to talk about human rights and violations, let us go to this, okay? I want you to look at it. This is about 3 minutes, 2-3 minutes, and we're gonna come back. We're gonna play 2 more in conjunction with this. So just bear with me.
Fareed Zakaria GPS, seen in Sunday morning 10 Eastern and Pacific.
But first, our priorities when it comes to our justice system, because
Fareed Zakaria GPS, seen in Sunday morning 10 Eastern and Pacific.
I did it on purpose because I wanted to tell you something right before the thing. I want to give you something to put on your head right before the thing starts playing. Remember that this takes place years ago. These numbers are from years ago. We know that the incarceration rate has exploded. We know that there is now the for-profit system set up by the U.S., right? So whenever you hear the numbers and the statistics, always remember that those were years ago. So you have to now do the math and multiply. Whatever number they're giving you, it is far greater than what they're saying here. Because I just wanted to bring these statistics up that were relevant to what we were talking about with China's situation. And I'm relating it to black and brown America specifically, but poor white people and Asians around America, okay? I want you to listen to this. Good.
Fareed Zakaria GPS, seen in Sunday morning 10 Eastern and Pacific.
But first, here's my take. Something caught my eye the other day. Pat Robertson, the high priest of the religious right, had some startling things to say about drugs. I really believe we should treat marijuana the way we treat beverage alcohol, Mr. Robertson said recently. I've never used marijuana and I don't intend to, he said, but it's just one of those things that, well, I think this war on drugs just hasn't succeeded. The reason Robertson is for legalizing marijuana is that it has created a prison problem in America that is well beyond what most Americans imagine. He's right. Here are the numbers. the total number of Americans under correctional supervision, prison, parole, etc., is 7.1 million, more than the entire state of Massachusetts. No other country comes even close to our rates of incarceration. We have 760 prisoners per 100,000 people. Most European countries have 1/7 that number per capita, so it's adjusted for population. Even those on the high end of the global spectrum, Brazil, Poland, have only 1/4 the number we do. Now, if you say this is some kind of enduring aspect of America's Wild West culture, you would be wrong. In 1980, our rates of incarceration were 1/4 what they are now. What changed was the war on drugs and the mindless proliferation of laws that have created criminal penalties for anything and everything. If you don't believe me, listen to Pat Robertson again.
We here in America make up 5% of the world's population, but we make up 25% of jailed prisoners. We have now over 3,000, the number must be much higher than that, but over 3,000 federal crimes. And every time the liberals pass a bill, I don't care what it involves, they stick criminal sanctions on it. And so we have the jails filled with people who are white-collar criminals.
In the past 2 decades, the money that states spend on prisons has risen at 6 times the rate of spending on higher education. In 2011, California spent $9.6 billion on prisons versus $5.7 billion on higher education. Since 1980, California has built 1 college campus. It has built 21 prisons. The state spends $8,667 per student per year. It spends about $50,000 per inmate per year. Why is this happening? Well, prisons are a big business now. They are privately run, they have powerful lobbyists, and they have bought most state politicians in America. Meanwhile, we are bankrupting our states and creating a vast underclass of prisoners who will never be equipped for productive lives. I never thought I'd say this, but God bless you, Pat Robertson. Let's get started.
So, Rashid has been knocked off, and hopefully he'll come back in. So check this out. I want these clips about incarceration rate. I want you to remember these because in an upcoming show, we're going to replay these clips because we're going to address some issues here in America. Okay. But we're going to go to the next one. And these are short clips. Remember that Fareed Zakaria said the incarceration started exploding when they enacted what they call what? The war on drugs, right? And a lot of people attribute the war on drugs to Ronald Reagan, but it was actually attributed to Richard Nixon and his advisor. They started the war on drugs, and specifically he said to target Black people. He said if we can demonize them day in and day out, matter of fact, the quote is something else. Let's see. Let me see if I can find it real quick while I'm talking to you. I wish I could find this quote real quick because it'll blow your mind. I actually have the audio, but I'm looking for the quote. We can find it real quick. And the guy, yes, here it is. I think that's it. All right, here it is. Found the quote. Now, this guy on Ehrlichman, I think that's what his name, his advisor. He and Richard Nixon were talking, and Ehrlichman later on, after the release of some of the White House tapes, through the Freedom of Information Act, years later, you find these things out. But it says, let me read something. This is inside. Long wrote that Ehrlichman, following his very public scrutiny and conviction, had little left to protect truth. This was really about, he's talking about this war on drugs. All right, this is what Ehrlichman is talking about. Ehrlichman asked, referring to the war on drugs, and this is a quote. Okay, Ehrlichman says, the Nixon campaign in 1968 and the Nixon White House after that had 2 enemies. Listen to me good. had two enemies: the anti-war left illegal to be either against war or black, but by the public and black heroin and criminalizing both heavily, we could disrupt those communities. We could arrest their leaders, raid their homes, break up their meetings, vilify them night after night on the evening news. Did we know we were lying about the drugs? Of course we did. That's what he said. That's what John Ehrlichman says, the advisor to Richard Nixon, and he after being convicted and falling out of favor with certain people in the White House, he drops the dime on the true source of the so-called war on drugs. Because remember, under what's the gay guy name? J. Edgar Hoover, the cross-dresser, who was the leader of the FBI for decades. Rashid, I'm trying to bring you back in, but somehow the thing is freezing. So give me a second. When it stops freezing, I'll bring you in. When J. Edgar Hoover talked about the need to break up black unity. Now, this is not me. This is not race baiting. This is what was said. And I can prove it to you. I can pull it up on the screen and let you see it for yourself. Okay, they had a policy because they feared a united community. This is what Edgar Hoover said. He said that was his top priority, to break up black families and to find something like we say guns, quote unquote. I don't know the exact quote on this, but guns and drugs, and flood those communities. And think about this: after the J. Edgar Hoover said that yeah, street tripping right now. But I was going to bring this thing up on the screen to let you see for yourself, but it seems like StreamYard is preventing that from happening. I won't put this on YouTube at this moment. I believe this is StreamYard at this moment, and I could be wrong, but I believe this is StreamYard doing this, the platform we use to stream through YouTube. Okay, but anyway, the significance of this again. Let me read. Okay. But after J. Hoover talked about this with some of his colleagues and what needs to be done to keep the ex-slaves subjugated and disoriented and divided, he talked about breaking up the black family and flooding the communities with guns and drugs, right? And that he said that was one of his main priorities, to prevent of a black messiah. This is J. Edgar Hoover. If you think I'm lying, if you think I'm race baiting, go get what is the book I have on one of my shelves? The book with J. Edgar Hoover quotes in it. This is what he said. Okay, so I don't want anybody to talk about race. I'm talking about truth, and sometimes the truth is inconvenient, but we have to get past these barriers in order to get a good understanding of the now. So if America sanctions China for Tibet, why hasn't America sanctioned America for the influx of guns and drugs in black in urban community? Again, it says Dan Baum, the author of the 1996 Smoke and Mirrors, The War on Drugs and the Politics of Failure, wrote in Harper's Magazine in 2016 that while researching his book, Ehrlichman gave a reason for the war of drugs that had little to do with protecting Americans from reefer madness. See, the same thing with the crack. Ehrlichman, following his very public scrutiny and conviction had little left to protect and came clean about a shocking truth. And this is what Ehrlichman said. You want to know what this was really about? Ehrlichman asked, referring to the war on drugs. The Nixon campaign in 1968 and the Nixon White House after that had two enemies: the anti-war left and black people. You understand what I'm saying? We knew we couldn't make it illegal to be either against the war or to be black, but by getting the public to associate the hippies with marijuana and blacks with heroin, and then criminalizing both heavily, we could disrupt those communities. We could arrest their leaders, raid their homes, break up their meetings, and vilify them night after night on the evening news. Sound familiar? Did we know we were lying about the drugs? Of course. That is John Ehrlichman, who was an advisor to Richard Tricky Dick Nixon. All right. And it's amazing. Now I'm going to add some of your comments in the chat to the screen shortly after these two short clips that I'm about to play are played. Okay. So now let us go to this
our priorities when it comes to our justice system, because, you know, of course there's the element of punishment, but then there's supposed to be that element of rehabilitation, but we've completely abandoned that notion. Now we focus primarily on keeping them in a cell, in a lot of cases abusing these people to the point where they do become hardened criminals after they've been incarcerated for a nonviolent crime. Now if you break it down by race, the numbers are even more shocking and jarring. So 1 in 35 are under some form of correctional supervision. And that's all people in general. But if you look at race, likelihood to spend time in prison in the U.S., 1 out of 3 black males in this country are likely to spend time behind bars. And when it comes to Hispanics, it's 1 out of 6. When it comes to white males, it's 1 out of 25.
Sweet, we win again.
See, they would say we win again. He was being facetious about it. He said, see, we win again. The laws were targeting non-white people. This is not being made up. And what I'm saying is the hypocrisy of America to target China for so-called human rights abuses when her stated policy was to attack a so-called minority group that is supposed to be considered American. So to delegitimize black Americans, what do they do? They say blacks, right? And then they put a stigma behind it, and then they justify going into the communities, raiding them and doing this, and then there's an influx of guns and with no jobs. And then you see the music industry, well, of late, because back in the early 80s, the rap music was not talking about pow pow, shoot 'em up or whatever like that. But now it is geared towards materialism, drugs, guns, womanizing, and seeing who has the most money. And then you see the movies, which are just as bad. Arnold Schwarzenegger's movies were just as bad as the rap music and stuff like that. But when we look at it, who controls the music industry? And then when you look at it, who controls the movie industry? And then so you have to say this was a concerted, unified effort to do what they're doing, because now there's killing, but this is the ramification of the policies of America when they flooded those communities with drugs, prevented them from getting good jobs and good educations, broke up family, broke up now they're these people children are being born without fathers. That is a byproduct of the American policy, a concerted effort to do that. You just heard what I read from Richard Nixon's own advisor. So you don't blame the victim, you got to blame the people who, the assault, the person who did the assault. This gets left out of the conversation because nobody wants to be caught with it on their hand, with the eggs on their hand. everybody wants to blame everybody else and don't want to take responsibility for American policy and American politics. And this goes to the core of America. This is what's eating up and making America rotten to the core, because they don't want to address the hard-hitting issue, because they fear that they may alienate some group over here or some group over there. As we always point out on this show, why is it? And I'm not condemning those people who bag Jan 6 movement, but they call them the Jan 6 movement, right? I'm not bashing them. But why is it that they're called patriots and a movement for liberty? And they went into even if somebody let them in the Congress building, they went in there. Regardless of who let them in there, they went in there. Held people, they kidnapped people, they confiscated stuff out of the highest law-making body in the world, the U.S. Congress, right? They went in there and they ransacked the place. You have videos of it. Even if they were tricked into doing it, they did it. Because when we point out that when there's a killing in urban America by police, an unjust killing, right? The first thing that they roll out is the person's past history. Even if it has nothing to do with the situation at hand, and they never roll out the police's history of what they did. And then when the people protest, as took place in on the West Coast, when they protested a couple years ago about the killing of some black, I don't know if it was in Oregon or Washington or in that area, but there were videos, listen to me good, and I had the videos, but it's on one of my other computers. There were videos of people pulling up in trucks with bricks loaded on them. These weren't from the urban community. These were people pulling up, and they had bricks on the back of the truck, and they were unloading pallets of bricks where the people were protesting. And then you had who were dressed from head to toe in black ski masks and glasses and gloves, and they started throwing the bricks against the window and started agitating the crowd. And they went into the building, and the people followed behind it. And Fox News and the other newscasts only showed the urban community going in there, and they thought, oh, these are thugs. There's no justification for the vandalizing of these stores, vandalizing for this. This is this is outrageous. And then we say, but the people were protesting for rights. Isn't that patriotism? But then when the people go ransack the Capitol building, that's justified and that's patriotism. But those were not urban communities that did that. So it gets a pass. Do you see what I'm trying to show you is the hypocrisy of America and her policies, and her domestic policies mirror her international policies and vice versa. Okay, let me go into this next clip, and then I'm going to put some, they just disconnected Rashid. Put up the some of the chat. Okay. So
relatively civilized.
They look like any European family.
Christians, they're white.
You know, this is a relatively civilized, relatively European, I have to choose those words carefully too, city where you wouldn't expect that or hope that it's going to happen.
When they say, oh, civilized cities, and in another clip, well-dressed people, and this is not the third world, they really mean white people, don't they?
Stop that there. Do you see that? Now, the outrage of not only the U.S. and the European governments, but seen globally as Russia went into Ukraine for national interest reasons, and they say this is unheard of. And I'm going to replay that thing with a little bit more behind it. But they say this is unheard of. No, it's not. The United States bombed Serbia, bombed Yugoslavia. Remember? They got some trumped up charges on Slobodan Milosevic, and they went in there and they bombed what was at the time Yugoslavia, and broke up that Slavic nation into a host of nations that are now members of NATO. This wasn't 40 years ago. This was not 40 years ago. This happened recently. But it's an outrage as the reporters let slip that these people are civilized. They're not third world nations. They're blonde hair, blue eyes. They're like us. That's what he says, right? And then they tell me there's no racism and no double standards in U.S. policy and Western politics. Man, get out of here with that foolishness. I'm gonna play this clip because this has everything to do. Well, I'll come back to that clip. I'm gonna keep my word and I'm gonna put some stuff up in the chat so we can cook on some of that stuff. Let's see. Go back a little bit. Let me go up a little bit. The Erg Wars. Thank you, Jenny Ben. Thank you. The Erg Wars. Thank you. For the other people in China, it's hard for me to pronounce that. But I think they say Uyghurs or Erg Wars or something like that. The United States harps on that to try to beat China down with that. But here is Reef. Reef Omar, he says, Raytheon and one of the credit bureaus, TransUnion, is also weapons manufacturers. Right. Now you just shared something with me that I did not know. I did not know TransUnion was a part of that. Thank you for sharing it. See, we have to engage each other. This is a circle of wisdom. I'll share with you what I know. You share with me what you know. Reef Omar, man, thank you for that. I learn something every day. You live and you learn. And I'm not going to make it seem like I knew it, but I didn't. I'm bring Rashid. They disconnected Rashid, but now Jenny BN, she said she put up there it was the Erg Wars and that the United States like to use against China. Right here, we're going back to Reef. He says despite the doom and gloom happening all around us, most people still want to hold on to the belief that everything in America will turn around and there will be endless prosperity. I just laughed. Yeah, me too. They'll tell you, listen to me good, they'll tell you stuff like this. This has never happened before in the history of finance. This has never happened before in the history of politics. This has never happened before in the history of geopolitics. And then they'll start naming you all of these unbelievable black swans. And then they'll start naming it all of these, I would call it nuclear bombs laid at the base of the Western world. And then they'll try to say, well, but we'll rebound. And have you noticed that they refuse to say depression when they're talking about the economic climate? They constantly say recession. Recession. They've been saying that since 2010, recession, or 2008, recession. But according to the definition of recession, after a couple consecutive months or 18 consecutive months of recession, I believe it's 18, it could be 2 years, but 18 months of it becomes depression. And nobody says that because that's an unpalatable term. That's why the people are like they are. They sissies, they wusses. They don't want to stand up and tell things that might offend other people, even if it's the truth. Sometimes truth is going to cut and offend people. Sometimes that happens. You know, sometimes when you find out somebody that you knew did something, you say, man, I can't believe that. Man, and it hurts you. And over time, you start realizing, okay, yeah. They exhibited these traits here. Yeah, I see. And then the truth around it affects. Let's go. Let's go. We're going in a little bit.
Hold on a minute, brother. Can you hear me?
This. Act like they don't want to let me put it up.
Can you hear me?
Jenny being, it's better to be wealthy and guilty in America rather than not guilty and poor.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you. I'm reading right now. I'm reading some chat. I'm reading from the chat. Hold on. It says forced labor prison system in the USA. It is forced labor. But see, again, let's go back to Richard Nixon. And even before that, let's go back to his predecessors and the the cross-dressing drag queen, the FBI director, Hoover, Edgar Hoover. They wanted a way to break the rise of the civil rights movement and the Black movement and the other movements for civil liberty and equality and justice, right? So a lot of things that were legal, they outlawed. That was to put you in jail and put a stigma behind you, and also to break up family. And the cycle continues over and over and over again. And so what happened is some people look at the state had to deal with this, and then people started looking, hey, I can make a lot of money off that. Let me pay these politicians to let me take over the prisons. I'll make money off the labor, but they got to guarantee me that it is a 90% occupancy rate. You remember a few years ago, a few judges went to jail for that because they found out that it was a school to prison pipeline. They were going into urban communities. The police were encouraged to harass and arrest urban kids. When they got them to court, they knew that they didn't have the resources to get the proper representation, and the so-called public defender was in on it. And so they would do a lousy job of representing the people, and the children, the teenagers, and the young adults were going to prison. And the judges were getting kickbacks on this because they had promised the institutions, the private corporations, that they would keep at least a 90% occupancy rate of the prisons. This is not something I'm making up. You can Google this stuff. And so how in the hell can America point the finger at China or Russia about human rights abuses when she abuses the very people in our midst on a daily basis? So let's go to the next comment. This says, I saw a report on Dubai. I'll let you comment. Just hold on one second, Rashid. I want you to come in on. But go ahead and comment, and then we'll both come in on this one.
Getting back onto what you were talking about with Richard Nixon, I was watching a program where it was saying that the housing market, the student loan program, and all that come from the Nixon administration. They said they had one of Nixon's flunkies come in and tell him, well, we're going to how to make money so to get rid of the schools. Back when Nixon, when you can go to college and it wouldn't cost that much. But if you made a reason why the schools would go up, prices would go up, it would make a lot of money for its people. Also, what is the hospitalization? Same thing. That started under Nixon. You get the health companies were nonprofit, getting the private companies that own that. They call them the sons of Nixon. You know, Nixon.
Let me mute you 1 second, and I need you to start over. Hey, I'm gonna mute for a second, and then I want you to start over from the last minute of what you were saying.
All of the
I need you to start over. Rashid, I need you to start over talking from the last minute or so of what you were saying. StreamYard is messing with your microphone. They're messing with your microphone. So I'm going to unmute you, and I want you to start over from a minute ago. If they allow, yeah, there you go. Go ahead.
All of these people under Nixon. Nixon started the raising of the hospital prices. I mean, the healthcare prices, the student loan prices. All of the neocons were most of them were in the Nixon administration. That's how they got their start. And stuff when you talking about the war on drugs and all of it mostly all of it come up under Nixon. You know, Nixon was didn't have any.
Okay. Okay. So, the last part of what he said, they blocked out. They keep continue. We got the gist of everything he said, but the last part. But I want you to. We're going to go back to the chat real quick. Rashid is dropping some knowledge on you with how Nixon had a hand in a lot of this stuff that is now coming to the forefront today. This is what we've been telling you about. We give you the truth, and some of you might not like it, but it is the truth. And we know that there's channels that have like hundreds of thousands of subscribers. As a matter of fact, one of them in particular had to look at the show from a few days ago, because when I watched their show, they made reference to this. They didn't name the show. They didn't, as they normally would. They would name the shows, but for some reason, this show with two black hosts on it didn't get named. But they made reference to some of the points that we were making, and they begrudgingly agreed with what we were saying, only they wanted more proof, even though we put videos and articles out, and they didn't scrutinize the other channels like that. But it is what it is. Check this out. Reef Omar says this: I saw a report on Democracy Now! that in New York they're building the jail scraper. Yeah, I saw something like that too. The jail scraper, the world's tallest jail, as well as new jails in 4 of the 5 boroughs, except for Staten Island, which is mostly white. No wonder. You know. Let's go to the next one. Let's go to the next one. It says, it's amazing how your connection is interrupted when speaking truth, but celebrity gossip, athletes knocking up IG models, and rappers getting arrested can operate clear with impunity. I submit you just said. They just knocked Rashid back off. Now listen, again, for the audience, they're knocking people who are on the channel off also. But here's the kicker. As I always tell you, we have 2 internet connections. We have Cox Cable, which has the strongest internet connection. We have the best internet connection provided. And I'm looking at YouTube, which is with the green light on the screen that says excellent connection. And we have the backup mobile spot, which is from Verizon. So this should not even be happening, right? It should not even be a internet connection problem, because even YouTube is saying that we have excellent connection. But this is what happens. But we're gonna go a little further. We're gonna read a few comments. I wanted to do a lot more. I guess when we do the show tomorrow, I guess we'll leave part of this. We'll talk along this line here of chat to continue on, because we got to talk about Russia, we've got to talk about Africa, we've got to talk about what's going on in Asia, we've got to talk about what's going on in Latin America, we've got to talk about the Middle East, we've got to talk about the implosion of Europe, but we have to also address the situation here at home too. And someone asked me in the email, they say they noticed after about 20 or 30 minutes, my voice starts cracking or breaking up. And they wanted to know why was that? Because they have from platforms and know that I have a strong voice. Well, this is the thing here. I won't say the name of the thing because YouTube will erase the video and suspend me. But there was a little virus going around, for a while, and you had to be when this virus came around. You remember when they had lockdowns or whatever? Well, when I got that virus, I beat it. But the ramifications is I noticed from that point on, my voice would start cracking after that. And I would have to drink a lot of water, which I always do, but because the back of my throat would burn. And I mentioned that to my doctor, and he said that probably is one of the after effects of it. Okay, so that's why my voice cracks sometimes and breaks sometimes, and that's why it is not as thunderous as it once was. But that, hey, that's the cross I have to bear. Okay, but it's not gonna stop the show. Let us read this here. It says, we'll bring this one up on the screen. COINTELPRO was never disbanded. Facts. COINTELPRO was never disbanded. It has evolved into the modern day madness that we're seeing today. Absolute facts. I was going to talk on that, but why would I talk? You just hit it, man. You just hit the nail on the head. Sometimes we're gonna have to get you on here to talk too. Let's go to the next one. It says rehabilitation. The American prison system is a revolving door of facts, and that's why Rashid and I talked about the from school to prison thing that they had scam going on, and it's still going on, but it's going on in a more covert manner because some judges and prosecutors and public defenders got knocked off a few years ago because it was too blatant, and they were making all these kickbacks. So excuse me. So now they're doing it more covertly. But I want you to remember that when you see all of this stuff about the violence and the drugs and stuff on your nightly news, constantly remember what Nixon and his advisors said. The reason they're doing that is to dehumanize these people, right? And he said, and did we know what we were doing was wrong? And that stuff was wrong? Yeah, we did. Did it stop? No. Why? Because they had a goal, they had a policy to implement. And these people, and this is what I'm telling you, from president to president, the policy changes about that much. But it never changes enough to change America. And this is why America is in the position that she's in, because of the arrogance and the unwillingness to admit fault and do something about it. And not just say I'm sorry for this or I'm sorry for that, because you can get in court and you can say for instance, you're in an altercation and you fight somebody, and because the person was bothering you and you feared for your life, and you hit them and knock them down, they hit their head and they're permanently brain dead, or they die. You can go into court and you can say, I didn't mean to do that. I'm sorry. But the court system is going to demand more than the apology. Why is it that the court system demands more than an apology, but with the American government, all we get from time to time is an apology with no substance behind it? This is what I'm saying. This is what I'm saying. Why is that? Tell me that. This is hypocrisy. They knocked them off again. This is hypocrisy to the highest level, and no one speaks on it. They involve themselves, and they don't want to. They don't want to go too far into this because they may lose subscribers or readers or anything. Listen, this is not. This show right here is about truth. When I talk about Obama and his failed policies and his policies that were meant to decapitate, listen to me good. His policies were meant to decapitate Black entrepreneurship, Black self-independence, right? And Black economic progress. When I talk about that, the only problem I have is from a Black audience. But when I point out the opposite side, it's race baiting. But what I'm doing, I'm calling it right down the middle, and I'm telling the truth. I'm calling an ace and a spade a spade. You understand? Whether you like it or not. If you don't like it, you don't have to look. You don't have to watch. I'm not begging for no views. I'm not doing what the other channels are doing. We're not begging for that. We want to disseminate the truth, because the truth, even in these alternative media sites that are popular, and they give you some truth, they bury the underlining truth of why this, and this. They give you their opinion. Oh, well, I believe such and such, but they don't connect the dots of why this happened here, here, and here, and how it's connected to over here, 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 and here. You understand? So what we're trying to do to you is enlighten you. Because see, listen, an enlightened person is hard to take advantage of. If you have the same if you have the same insight as the government, it's hard for the government to exploit you. If you have the same understanding and insight that I have and others have, it's hard for to exploit you is because they have it for you and understanding these things around you. So they'll give you this over here, but they'll withhold some of this over here. That's not right. You have to, if you tell it all. Don't tell what'll make you look good. Tell it all. And that's what we're saying. Now listen, the show has been wonderful to do. A lot of stuff from either YouTube or StreamYard. We're working on another streaming platform to come through YouTube so that we can try to minimize this freezing of the screen, the messing with the voice and all that. And I see you. I'm about to ask you before we go off the air because I know you want to say something. Rashid just hit me and said he's back in the booth. I see him. Listen, I'm sincere about what I'm saying. Rashid is sincere about what he's saying. We're not trying to take advantage of you. Too many people have done it and are doing it. That's how they remain rich. That's how they remain powerful. That's how they grow their sites. That's how they do those things. But sometimes you got to put all of that to the side and say, you know what? Let's just let truth stand. If I have 100 followers, 1 follower, or 200 million subscribers, it doesn't matter. Let's not water down the content. Let's let the people who are attracted to the truth gravitate towards the truth, even if it might offend them a little bit. Because after a while, when you sit down and you go through what I said or what Rashid said, let's just say, for instance, today, if what we said offended any of you, if you go back and look at what we said, it's history. It's facts. We didn't do it and we didn't say it per se. We were echoing what was done and what was said. We were pointing these things out to you. So why would you be mad with us pointing out truth that has been omitted by other people? It just doesn't make sense. Before we go out, I'm gonna let Rashid have a few parting words, and then I'm gonna close out with you all. But I want you all, please go over to our Patreon and subscribe. Go over to Odyssey and subscribe. I think we're on what is it? Telegram. We just started. Go over to Telegram. The Red Pill Diaries on Telegram and subscribe. Go to my son keeps telling me about Rumble. He's trying to set up the Rumble. Go over to Rumble and subscribe to the Red Pill Diaries. And Twitch, subscribe to the Red Pill Diaries. Go and also subscribe to the Red Pill Journals, which is the sister channel on YouTube. Just in case they kick us off here, we can still do it on our sister channel. But Rashid, go ahead. Say your parting words. You there?
As you was saying,
I guess
I keep getting kicked off. I didn't kicking me off. Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you. Go ahead.
I keep getting kicked off. I don't know why they like to kick me off, but as you were saying, truth only hurts. Truth only hurts.
They're messing with your voice. Say what you said again. Say they're messing with your voice.
If what we say don't hurt you,
go ahead. Okay. Okay. I guess they're just gonna bother this brother's microphone. I guess they just cut him down. Now it's just ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous how they're doing this show, but it is what it is. Oh, and let me tell you this too. So go ahead, Rashid. Hold up 1 second, and I want you to say everything that you had to say over again. But hold on 1 second. Let me tell the people this. My son, my daughter, and I have been monitoring both the Red Pill Diaries and Red Pill Journal. And let me 1 second. My son, my daughter, and myself have been monitoring the Red Pill Diaries and the Red Pill Journals on YouTube. And what we have found, we already knew because we said it before, but we found that it has gathered steam that every time there's 2 to 3 subscribers, 2 to 3 unsubscribe. Isn't that amazing? It's not them unsubscribing, they are being unsubscribed from our platform. So I wanted you to understand that. That's why the numbers are low. They continue to do this. They've been doing this since we've started going live. But anyway, Rashid, go ahead and say what you have to say, and say it slowly so that they don't mess with your microphone. If they unmute you. Are they going to unmute him? Come on. You got to be kidding me. Hold on. All right, you're unmuted. Go ahead.
No.
Oh man, they disconnected him again. I guess they don't want him to say what he has to say. Right? They don't want this to be successful, but we're successful because we have you here. If one person came and showed up just to listen, that's a success, because truth is not popular. We look at Instagram and Facebook and all of these made up lives and careers, and these people who present themselves to be this type of person. And when you look at them, they're nothing like that. Look at that. Because today's world is Walt Disney. Everything is just for show. There's little to no real substance out there. And so we want to be that vehicle that offers you some tangible thing, some sustenance that sticks to the bone, right? And willing to stay at whatever number we are to get this truth out. It's never been about numbers with us. It's always been about getting the truth out and giving a vehicle for people in the chat to talk and express their opinions and their thoughts respectfully towards one another and to the audience. And we'll add it to the stream and we'll interact with you because you are just as big a part of this as we are. And we encourage you to join us. And we're going to be doing it live tomorrow, same time. And we encourage you to join us and to give your thought and your opinion. We'll post them up here. Make sure they're respectful, because we try to be respectful. We have children, we have mothers, we have fathers, we have families watching. So we want it to be respectful, okay? Because the best way to get respect is to show respect, right? We respect you. We honor your presence, and we really appreciate you coming on the platform and viewing us, whether you're viewing us or whether you're in the chat. We really appreciate the time that you give, because time is the most valuable commodity on earth or in existence. Because once you pay out your time to something, you can never get it back. So if you give your time to something, you have to make sure that it's worth the price that you have to pay. And what we try to do is make sure we give you the value of your time in return for you giving us your time. So in closing, Reef Omar says this, and this right here is so factual that as a matter of fact, let me go to it and post it on the screen beforehand. Let's see. Right here. Just give me a second. Under Obama, America was able to commit blatant and destructive acts that would have gotten a white president roasted. That's what I said. That's what I said. Now, just imagine if George Bush would have gone into Libya and they would have sodomized Gaddafi and they would have done the things that they did to North Africa. Trump would have been destroyed in the media as being racist. George Bush would have been destroyed. If those guys would have been destroyed for doing what Obama has done, they would have been destroyed when Obama transferred, what was it, 7 or 20, between 7 and 23 trillion dollars of wealth from the poor and middle class to the upper class. Nobody said anything about that. Nobody said anything about them taking, or I would say taking, but you know what the word is, taking the government lunch programs and stuff and taking the funding from that to fund something else. They did a lot of dirt that Black America don't want to come to terms with. It was under Obama that they broke the rise of Africa. But Africa is still down rising. So and for Black people who are listening, as long as I was talking about America's racist policy towards Black people, and I was pointing the finger at white people, right? And not all white people, but I'm talking about government. I'm talking about what we were the stuff that we were going at, because let me tell you something. The system is going to eat up middle class and poor white people too after they get done with us, and then they'll see, as you see with the Jan 6 movement, they were mad over the injustice in the so-called election, right? We have been complaining about that for decades. The injustice, the elections, the politics, right? And I have to say this before I go back to what I was just saying. And I have to point out the inconsistencies here with some of my colleagues that I talked to behind closed doors, because they were in an uproar over the chaos between what happened between Biden and Trump, right? You know what I'm talking about. So much so that you had the Jan 6 movement on the Capitol. But no words were uttered. And see, I call ace a ace and a spade, and I'm not a liberal. I'm not a Democrat, none of that stuff. And as a matter of fact, I don't even get involved in the politics because it's so corrupt. But listen, when the shoe was on the other foot, and we were talking about hanging chads in Florida, where was Jan 6 then about that, huh? Or where was the Jan 6 movement in the Ohio, the Midwest states when John Kerry was running? Huh? You remember that? You remember that? See, y'all have a short memory, but I don't. Do you remember that the other foot a while ago, but breaching of security on Congress doorsteps, and anybody who challenged the results were haters or something like that? Remember that? You know, remember how George Bush II got into office? Do you remember that? Huh? Y'all remember that? So what I'm saying is the political scheme is the same. It's just on certain issues, one is more hypocritical than the other one. And then on this issue, issues like this, they're more hypocritical than the other one. And that keeps you away from the political system, and that shows you the intrinsic and inherent corruption from top to bottom and from bottom to top. Okay. Now, I was speaking on something, but I see Rashid back in the booth, so I am going to bring him. Oh yeah, Reef said he remembers. He remembers what I'm saying. So I point these things out. We point these things out, and these are inconvenient truths to both sides. Like when we point out on one side, the other side cringe, and vice versa. They cringe. Still, it's not going to stop us from pointing them out. Rashid, I'm gonna let you say what you have to say, And then what was I talking about beforehand? I wanted to get to a point on the system. Oh, of Obama. I got it. Go ahead. I'm gonna close out with Obama, but go ahead.
The Democrat and the Republican. Democrat is tails, Republican is heads. It's still a quarter, right? Heads is a quarter, tails is a quarter. They're the same people.
I'm gonna put this up by Reef. I'm gonna have to put this up. This is aptly describes those thugs in suits that govern the nation and is running the world towards ruin. Reef describes them as the Demo Crips and the Republic Bloods. The Republic Bloods are two sides of the same coin. That is an apt description of both parties. Now, I was saying something about Obama. Black America does not like this inconvenient truth that it was under Obama that they broke the plans of Muammar Gaddafi when he wanted to turn the whole region, North African region, into a farmland. He wanted to band all Africa together to use the commodities and resources to bag the African currency, which would be a gold dinar. Now, he did this, and Black America didn't even blink. He bombed the aqueducts that were going to be used to turn the desert into fertile, and they break. This was done under Obama presidency, the atomizing of Gaddafi under Obama, the coup attempt against the great and noble Robert Mugabe, that was done under Obama. Did you know that under President Obama that he bombed more African countries and put more troops in Africa? I won't say Joe Biden is excluded because he's doing stuff right now. But I'm saying up until then, he had bombed more Black or African nations and made war with more Muslim nations than his predecessors. Did you know that? These are inconvenient truths. See, we call it out on both sides. These are inconvenient truths. And then he believes that if he can get in front of the media and then talk the lingo with you, and when he gets in front of the urban community and spin a basketball on his finger or shoot hoops or whatever, in the Black community, oh my God, Obama. As he steals trillions from the Black community, he gives you an Obama phone. That is the highest form of hypocrisy and sarcasm and contempt for people. Okay, and that is real. So look, and Reef says that his research, Obama killed more Muslims in 4 years than Bush did in 8. These are truths that you can't run from. So don't get mad when we speak out and we tell you truth on all of these, because anybody who occupies that office is compromised. Any and everybody who occupies that office is compromised. And when you refuse to go along with those who pull the strings behind the scene, you become a victim. John Kennedy, you become a victim, right? So listen, we hope that you join us tomorrow on this platform. Tell everybody about us, share, like, and subscribe. We go out the same way as we always come in the name of God. We love you, but God loves you best. And mama, always remember, oh, I love you, mama.